On a family road trip, we got into a car accident. I used all my strength to pull my mom, dad, and brother from under the car. But they only thought about getting my sister, who had a broken leg, to the hospital, leaving me alone on the mountainside road. They thought I was lucky and only had minor injuries, but they ignored my increasingly pale face and blue lips. They also ignored the car leaking oil. What did you say? Daisy died? In the VIP ward of the city's best hospital, everyone had different expressions. My biological mother sat by the bed, eyes wide open, seemingly not believing the police officer's words. Are you kidding? Sam, who always hated me, had his eyes wide open. For once, I saw a bit of panic in them. Yeah, maybe there's some kind of mistake. When we came down from the mountainside yesterday, we clearly saw her. Not injured. I floated in the air, looking at my shocked big brother, with a sarcastic cold smile on my lips. I understood what they were stubbornly holding onto at this moment, since they've always believed only in their own judgments 3 days ago, because my sister Haley mentioned she envied her classmates for going on family picnics. My mom, who usually hated the desolation of the mountains, suggested we go camping and have a picnic at a nearby mountaintop. Since Dad wasn't home, the 4 of us set off in 2 cars. But as the car drove to the mountainside and we were about to pull over and rest, the car suddenly lost control and crashed into the rock wall beside us. Mom and my brother, who were sitting in the front seats, passed out on the spot. I only felt a severe impact on my chest and back, but the pain quickly disappeared and my mind became exceptionally clear. I climbed out of the car, looking at the now deformed vehicle and the shattered windshield. There was no time to think. The only thought in my head was to get my trapped and injured family out of the smoking, possibly soon to explode car. Thankfully, Mom and my brother Raymond, who were in the front seats, were protected by the airbags and only suffered mild injuries and unconsciousness. As I carried them out of the car, Raymond woke up. The first thing he did was grab my collar and ask urgently, "Where's Haley? Is Haley still in the car?" I glanced at Haley, who I hadn't had time to get out yet, and nodded. The next second, he pushed me aside with force, causing me to fall to the ground, my back hitting a piece of debris hard. I groaned in pain, a strong ache spreading from my back throughout my body, making me almost ghostly pale and unable to stand up straight. I was in so much pain that I could hardly think of anything else, but Raymond yelled at me from the car door, "Why are you standing there? Haley's leg is stuck between the seats, come and help." Maybe his loud voice woke up Mom from her brief unconsciousness. Seeing me not moving, Raymond gave me a disgusted look before turning to shout at Mom, "Mom, come quickly. Haley's leg is stuck in the seat gap, it might be broken. You guys hurry." The 2 of them, just waking up from unconsciousness, rushed to the car upon hearing Haley was injured, ignoring their own possible injuries. Together, they carefully lifted the pale, pain-stricken Haley out of the car and gently placed her on the ground. "Mom, brother, I'm in so much pain." Haley's face, always delicate like a fragile, swaying white flower, appeared even more vulnerable. The 3 of them looked at her with deep concern. No one cared about me, who had just carried them out of the car and was now sitting on the ground, unable to stand up straight from the pain. I felt something was wrong. My limbs seemed to be getting colder. I weakly stretched my hand towards them, calling out several times before they finally noticed. "Mom, call for a car quickly, hurry." At my urging, they finally took out their phones and called for a car. But after the call, they only asked me if I was okay as a formality. When I shook my head, they turned back to comfort Haley. I felt a pang of bitterness in my heart. I didn't expect them to thank me. I would have felt better if they had asked me a few more times. But they didn't. Their eyes were only on Haley from start to finish. The car soon arrived, and they hurried Haley into it. Only then did they realize the problem. Haley's leg might be broken, so she couldn't sit like a normal person and had to lie across the seats. This meant there was no room for me in the car. Mom glanced at me with some embarrassment after scanning me up and down to make sure I wasn't injured. She apologized, "Daisy, your sister is seriously hurt, so Mom has no choice but to get her to the hospital first. You understand, right?" But I lowered my eyes, feeling a sharp pain in my heart. I clenched my fists, wanting to loudly ask why they were abandoning me again, but then I heard Haley's voice from inside the car. "Mom, it hurts." "Haley, is she going to die?" "Mom, stop talking to her and get to the hospital fast." Raymond, holding the constantly crying Haley, looked anxious and worried. "Daisy, take a cab to the hospital yourself." Hearing Haley's cries, there was no trace of guilt on Mom's face anymore. She slammed the car door shut and urged the driver to hurry to the hospital. The car sped away like an arrow, soon disappearing from my sight, just like many years ago. "But I'm in pain too." "But I'm your daughter too." "Why? Are you abandoning me again?" My heart started to grow as cold as my hands and feet. They were all focused on sending Haley to the hospital and told me to get a cab home. Did they even think about how it's the suburbs and almost impossible to get a cab? I had to bear the pain and walk down the mountain step by step. Each step was excruciating, and I kept recalling everything that happened before. I don't know how far I walked, but I couldn't go on anymore. I leaned against a tree, and my consciousness began to fade. I heard a loud explosion from midway up the mountain, and then I lost consciousness entirely and closed my eyes forever. I died from a ruptured spleen. Just by looking, you wouldn't see anything wrong. If they had called the police or an ambulance back then instead of using a private car, maybe I'd still be alive. When the police bluntly revealed my cause of death and questioned him in front of everyone, Mom wavered and almost immediately collapsed to the ground. Dad rushed over as soon as he got the news. He heard about my death just as he reached the doorway. In that moment, he seemed almost enraged, grabbing Mom by the shoulders and shouting at her, "Didn't I tell you not to go? Why didn't you listen to me? Why leave the house and go to the mountains? Don't you know Daisy once got lost and has a trauma about the mountain? Couldn't you think about her just once? Maybe it was too much for her." Under Dad's questioning, Mom rolled her eyes and fainted. When she woke up, she insisted on going to the police station, despite Dad and Raymond's attempts to stop her. She kneeled in front of my corpse, crying until she almost fainted again. I floated above, watching my body lie in the morgue, seeing her hold my cold hand, crying, "Daisy, Mom is sorry. I'm here to take you home." How ironic. The one who abandoned me now cries and says she wants to take me home, but where's my home now? The home she talks about might still exist, but there's no place for me there. "Sorry, you can't take Daisy's body just yet." "What do you mean?" Mom, with tears in her eyes, looked at the man in the white coat. "Why can't I take my daughter's body? My daughter died in an accident. If I sign, we should be able to take her home." Mom frowned and stared at the man, her eyes wide. But the man in the white coat wasn't fazed by her questioning. He pushed his glasses and said coldly, "2 years ago, Miss Daisy, as a volunteer, participated in a national secret research project. A few days ago, the project made significant progress. Miss Daisy signed a contract with us to be the first participant in this global release. But what does this have to do with us taking Daisy's body?" Mom stood up, her words filled with emotion. "Even if she signed some contract with you during her life, she's dead now. Are you still going to use her body for experiments? This is inhumane. It's deeply disrespectful to the deceased. I won't allow you to treat my child this way." Mom stood strong in front of my body. I floated above. Even though I was just a soul, I still felt a mix of pity and irony. This was the first time my mother defended me like this, and it's after my death. "I'm taking my daughter with me. If you stop me, I'll have our company's lawyers sue you immediately." She pulled out her phone, ready to call the funeral home. But before she could dial, a large hand grabbed her phone, stopping her. I agreed to it. "What?" Mom looked at Dad in disbelief. I said, "Daisy joined the project and donated her body. I agreed to it." Dad's tone was calm but distant. He looked at Mom as if she were a stranger. Mom's disbelief turned to anger. "Why? Jason, Daisy is your daughter. How can you let them use her body for experiments? Even if Daisy didn't understand, how could you, her father, allow this?" Mom clenched her fists and pounded on Dad's chest. Watching this scene, my heart ached. I floated down, trying to shield Dad from the hits. But it was useless. I knew it must hurt, but his expression remained unchanged. Because I'm her father, I owe her so much. So, I tried to fulfill her few requests. His tone was indifferent as he pushed Mom away. Just this once, can't you understand her? After that, Dad glanced at me and then left, leaving Mom in tears. I donated my body to become the first experiment in memory extraction. A day later, my memories will be broadcasted globally as a scientific achievement. I followed my devastated mom back to the hospital, wondering what Raymond and Haley's faces would be like when they heard my memories would be released globally. As expected, the look on their faces was priceless the moment they heard the news from Mom's lips. Daisy, as usual, never gave people a moment's peace. If she felt unwell, she could have told us. Why did she have to hold on and delay herself? Mom sat by the hospital bed, looking exhausted with reddened eyes, but her words were full of blame. Exactly, even in death she doesn't let people rest, always doing such disgusting things, Raymond murmured, completely oblivious to Haley's extremely pale face on the bed. Was that memory extraction experiment really real? I've never heard of anything like that. Why does Dad always indulge Daisy in doing such dangerous things? Haley's voice was full of worry as she finally spoke, but her eyes hid a hint of anxiety and unease. The hospital room was silent, each person lost in their thoughts like the calm before a storm. Mom seemed to sense the tension in the room, so she moved to the sofa in the rest area and picked up the remote to watch TV. But as soon as she turned it on, the TV showed a report about the upcoming memory extraction research conference, scheduled for the next day. Not just TV news, but social media was also flooded with news of this research breakthrough. If memory extraction technology could be perfected and widespread, it would be a monumental achievement for the entire world and human society. Countless media outlets and streaming services announced that they would cover the entire conference live the next day. Everyone was eager to witness this historic moment. A day passed in the blink of an eye. Inside the VIP hospital room, the atmosphere was icy cold. It was already time for the conference to start, but no one turned on the TV. Mom, Dad, don't you want to see Daisy's memories before she passed? Haley asked cautiously, feeling her anxiety rise. What's there to see? Who would want to know her memories? As if she's not afraid her memories will disgust others, Raymond scoffed but looked uneasy. The three of them exchanged words, but Dad silently held the remote, watching each second tick by. Even after the conference had started, he remained quiet. He sat there, his chest heaving as if gathering his resolve. Finally, he lifted his hand and turned on the TV. The room went silent again. No one spoke in the small hospital room, only the voices from the TV filled the space, explaining the memory extraction machine and its widespread implications. I scanned everyone's faces, they were quite the sight. Haley bit her lip, looking pale. Raymond leaned against the wall, disgusted, with sweat on his forehead. Dad watched the TV intently, while Mom's eyes were wide, waiting anxiously. At this moment, people all over the world gathered around TVs, computers, and phones to witness history. Online discussions buzzed as they awaited the success of my memory extraction. The machine was ready to go. Since the research wasn't complete, they could only extract the most profound memories from my brain. This to me, as soon as the memory visuals were projected on the big screen, everyone gasped in wonder, and the researchers celebrated their success. People were curious about the deepest memories of the first experimental subject, eager to see their content. The screen then showed a harmonious family scene. This was my first memory, my first gift to Raymond and Haley, presented from my point of view. Our family was setting up a picnic spot. Dad and I were pitching a tent while 9-year-old Haley pestered 13-year-old Raymond to play. Dad, let Daisy do it by herself. Take Raymond and me to explore the woods, please. Haley, in her pink princess dress, pouted and shuffled over, pushing all the tent chores onto me. I never understood why, but although I took care of her the most, among our siblings, she was the most antagonistic towards me. She always seemed to cry and act up to steal Dad's or Raymond's attention whenever they spent time with me. Whenever they left me to attend to her, she'd look back at me with a smug expression that said, "See, Dad and Raymond care about me the most." Back then, I thought she was just a clueless little sister, so I always gave in to her. No. Facing Haley's whining, Dad refused her request without even thinking. He gently pushed away Haley, who was holding onto his arm. With a soft but serious tone, we all divided the work at home before we came. Daisy already finished her part, and you promised Dad to help Big Brother and me pitch the tent. If you want to play, call Raymond over and clean up things first. Daisy is also Mom and Dad's child, not your maid. Dad said this as he pulled me to the side and called Raymond loudly to come and clean up. Raymond was reluctant, while Haley started throwing a tantrum and suddenly burst into tears. "Dad, you're a meanie. You only care about Daisy. I don't like you anymore." Haley stomped her foot and ran into the woods, feeling wronged. Haley. Seeing Haley run into the woods, Raymond immediately chased after her without another word. I squatted back down and smiled at Dad. "Dad, you should go too. I can pitch the tent myself. You should hurry after them. The woods are big, and if they get lost, it won't be good." I seemed used to this, and though I felt uncomfortable inside, I didn't think much of it. "Let's go together. Mom is busy in the car and might take a while. I don't trust leaving you here alone." Dad sighed helplessly, pulled me up, and didn't allow me to refuse as he led me in the direction Haley ran. The two of us searched around for a while but didn't see their shadows. Looking at the endless woods, I suddenly felt a sense of panic. Why haven't we seen them yet? "Dad, do you think Haley's in trouble?" My heart began to pound wildly for some reason, and the further we went in, the stronger the ominous feeling became. No, Haley is just a little kid, she can't run that fast. Dad comforted me softly, but his faster pace and tightened grip showed his worry. We searched a bit more and saw Raymond sitting under a tree, wiping his tears. When he saw us, Raymond's eyes lit up, and he ran toward us while crying. "Dad! Why did you take so long? Where's Haley?" Seeing nobody with him, Dad immediately grabbed Raymond's arm and asked. This made Raymond cry even harder. "I lost track of her. I couldn't find her and was planning to come get you, but I got lost." "Dad, should we split up to look for her?" I asked anxiously. Dad didn't answer right away, but I could tell he was more worried than I was. "No. The woods are too big, and we're on a mountain. There might be hidden pits." He handed me a reassuring look. "You take Daisy back the way we came. I'll keep looking. Maybe Haley's just hiding somewhere mad." Dad continued searching while calling Haley's name loudly. To ensure safety, I had no choice but to take Raymond back. Hopefully, Mom was already back at the campsite. "This is all your fault." Raymond had wiped his tears and now was blaming me. "If you'd helped Haley pitch the tent, maybe she wouldn't have thrown a tantrum, and I wouldn't have gotten lost." Raymond, as always, blamed everything on me. In the past, I might have argued with him, but now I didn't have the energy. Maybe because I ignored him, Raymond lost interest and followed me at a distance, occasionally looking around. When we reached a nearly vertical slope, he called out excitedly, "Daisy, look, there's actually a grave here. Who would bury someone here?" Annoyed, I turned back and walked towards him, looking where he pointed and felt a sudden shock. To Raymond, it might have seemed interesting, but to me, I was scared. What if Haley, out of curiosity, accidentally fell from a similar slope? The more I thought about it, the more terrified I became. Finally, I decided to go back into the woods to help look. "Raymond, just follow this path straight ahead. Dad and I made markers along the way. Follow them, and you'll definitely reach the campsite." I pointed in front of us and told Raymond. "Where are you going?" He grabbed my arm in panic as I turned to leave. "My sense of direction is better than yours. I want to help Dad." "No way." Raymond clung to my arm. "You can't go. Take me back first. What if I get lost again? This is all your fault, you have to take responsibility." Raymond started to act unreasonably, but I had no energy to argue. In our struggle, Raymond suddenly let go. I lost my balance and, with the slippery mud, fell backward, tumbling down the almost vertical slope. My ankle hit the tombstone hard. I felt like my entire body had been crushed. I lay on the ground, unable to move. The pain was so intense that I couldn't even scream. It seemed like something was covering my eyes, making everything blurry. Through the haze, I caught a glimpse of Raymond standing on the hill. He looked really panicked, but I couldn't see his expression clearly. In the last moment before losing consciousness, I saw him turn and sprint away as fast as a bowstring snapping. The scene turned pitch black. Mom, with red-rimmed eyes, turned and looked at Raymond, whose face was filled with guilt and panic. She was shocked. "Didn't you tell me Daisy went to find your dad? Do you know how worried I was then? Why did you lie to me and your dad? You made Daisy fall down there. Why didn't you tell us the truth when you came back? Why did you lie to us?" My mom's slap landed hard on Raymond's face. I didn't know how long they had looked for me back then, but I knew why Raymond lied to hide the fact that I had fallen. I guessed he was afraid of being scolded by our parents, so he lied. When they couldn't find me, he became even more scared to tell the truth and continued the lie. I didn't mean to. Raymond's voice trembled. "I thought she was dead. I wanted to tell, but you guys called the cops without even asking. I was scared. I was scared the police would arrest me for killing someone." Raymond covered his face, looking somewhat aggrieved, but then his tone changed abruptly. "It's not entirely my fault. If she had agreed to take me back first, we wouldn't have been arguing there. It's her own fault." Raymond's neck stiffened as he spoke with forced righteousness. I watched as my mom's eyes widened, seemingly surprised that Raymond was still shirking his responsibility. She trembled with anger and raised her hand to slap him again. But just as her hand rose, the dark TV screen flickered back to life. On the screen, I woke up from unconsciousness, slowly moving my body and starting to call for help loudly. When no one responded, the young me tried to stand up, enduring the pain in my ankle and thinking of ways to save myself. I first found a sturdy stick. Then, gritting my teeth, I used all my strength to grab onto a tree trunk and slowly climb up. Several times, I almost slipped and rolled back down because of exhaustion or a misstep. The scene was nerve-wracking. Finally, when my last bit of strength was spent, I made it up. I walked along the path in my memory to the campsite, only to find it completely deserted. I stood there in a daze for a long time, and the tears I held back finally fell. But I held on to a sliver of hope, believing that my parents and brother would never leave me behind. I started hobbling down the mountain the way we had come, and sure enough, I saw them about to drive away where they had parked the car. Excitedly, I wanted to rush toward them, but my injured ankle wouldn't let me. The distance between us was too far, so I shouted loudly, hoping they would hear. "Dad, Mom, I'm here. I'm here. You left me behind. Don't leave me." I walked as fast as I could through the pain and cried out, but it seemed like they didn't hear. The car started. Watching it get farther and farther away, I panicked. I was scared they really were going to leave me. I was scared I'd be abandoned. I didn't want to give up chasing that car, hoping someone would notice me. Until Haley looked back in my direction, my heart swelled with hope. I raised my hand high and waved it furiously. But as soon as she saw me, she went back inside and closed the window. The car didn't stop. I watched helplessly as it drove farther and farther away, finally disappearing from my sight. This was the first time they left me behind. And they left me for a whole 6 years. The hospital room was deathly quiet. Mom stared at the TV, unresponsive. Because my memories continued, the TV clearly showed how I was lured into a car after being left behind, how I was tied up and locked in a dark room, eating scraps and drinking dirty water, treated like merchandise and trafficked to another city hundreds of kilometers away as a 9-year-old child. At an age of building self-confidence and dignity, I was confined in a cage without respect, waiting to be sold like livestock. I couldn't recall how I survived those darkest days. What kept me going was my imagination, my belief that my parents would come to save me. I believed they would never give up on me. This belief got me through 6 long years. But what caused my suffering? Who was the source of my misery? I never understood why my brother and sister would do this to me. Why? Why? Mom. Haley pressed her lips together, her voice trembling. Her face had gone pale. She probably never thought the secret she had hidden for 8 years would be exposed in front of everyone like this. I admit I saw someone waving at me, but I didn't know it was Daisy. Haley's eyes turned red as tears fell onto the bedspread. She looked so innocent. Dad, Mom, believe me. If I had known it was Daisy, I would have told you to stop the car. She's been so good to me, how could I leave her behind? As Haley spoke, she covertly tugged on Raymond's sleeve. Raymond appeared startled for a moment but quickly said, "Yeah, Mom." Haley might be a bit willful, but she wouldn't do something like this. Maybe we should just stop watching. As Raymond spoke, he reached for the remote on the table, but before he could grab it, their dad, who had stood up slowly, kicked him to the ground. Ignoring everyone's shocked gasps, Dad sat back down, glanced at the disheveled Raymond with a blank expression, and said coolly, "Keep watching." Dad turned back to the TV, which was already showing the second scene. I groggily opened my eyes and found myself in an abandoned warehouse. I tried to get up but realized my hands and feet were tied. I heard intermittent sobs nearby. I followed the sound and saw a frightened 16-year-old Haley in a school uniform, crying in the corner. At that moment, I didn't know what had happened. I only remembered that after I left the school, someone put a bag over my head, and the next thing I remember is waking up here. Haley, Haley. I shuffled over to her, wanting to ask what had happened. Haley was crying so hard she couldn't speak. She gestured with her chin, and I looked in that direction, seeing an unconscious Raymond, looking beaten up. Judging by his condition, he must have been severely beaten. This memory was probably from the time Raymond and a few others got kidnapped. Dad watched the scene on the TV with a frown, seemingly piecing together the memory. Raymond naturally recalled the kidnapping from a year ago, a cold smile forming on his face. She really has the nerve to use this as her most vivid memory. Finally feeling triumphant, he looked disdainful. I floated in the air, my expression indifferent, a cold smile lingering on my lips. I suddenly felt a wave of anticipation. I was now curious about Raymond's reaction when he learned the truth. After all, this was the second gift I had prepared for them. Dad, maybe we shouldn't watch this. From her hospital bed, Haley's voice was shaky and worried, something I didn't initially notice. Dad, I don't want to watch anymore. I don't want to remember the kidnapping. Dad, I'm scared. Seeing the terror on Haley's face, Raymond felt a pang of pity, pulling her into his arms and promptly saying, "Dad, if you have any anger, take it out on me. Can't you see how scared Haley is? What more is there to see? Isn't it just like Haley said?" The selfish jerk ran off to save himself, leaving us behind, and ended up getting what he deserved. She even admitted to it herself. It's all Raymond's fault. Raymond's speech was cut off by Haley's voice coming from the TV. This idiot got involved with those guys, messing with some woman who had a man. He deserved the beating, but why drag me into this? I didn't make him go and be a backup. I was supposed to go to the KTV with friends tonight, but thanks to him. Haley snarled with red eyes at the unconscious Raymond. There was no brotherly or sisterly affection on her face, just anger and blame. In the hospital room, Raymond, who had absorbed every word, looked utterly shocked. Instinctively, he pushed Haley away, unable to believe such cruel words had come from his beloved sister. He probably couldn't believe he mattered less to her than a night out with friends. Seeing his expression, Haley panicked, grabbing his sleeve and hurriedly saying, "It's not like that. I was just so scared at the time, so I complained." "Don't be mad at me." Raymond said nothing. Ordinarily, he would have forgiven Haley instantly, but his current expression showed he was now distancing himself from her. Floating above, watching the two of them, I suddenly laughed. Seeing the once close siblings now estranged gave me a surge of satisfaction. Raymond's eyes returned to the TV. Alright, there's no point in talking about it now. I interrupted his complaints, frowning at the thugs in the distance drinking and gambling. Their rough look was intimidating. I slowly inched towards Raymond, checking out his current state. As I got closer, I finally saw the guy who was usually so arrogant and overbearing. Now, his face was covered in blood. Someone must have hit him on the head with a stick. The bleeding wound had already scabbed over. His face was bruised and swollen, and there were many footprints on his body. I still didn't know what exactly Raymond did or why these people tied us up, but I couldn't help but assume the worst. We needed to find a way to escape. I moved my wrists, frowning from the pain caused by the rope's friction, and under Haley's shocked gaze, I skillfully slipped my hands out of the loosely tied rope. The rough rope had cut several bloody marks into my hands, but I didn't make a sound. I silently untied the rope around my feet and looked around carefully. Eventually, I spotted a narrow dog hole near some clutter in the corner. I'll crawl through that dog hole and find someone to call the cops. You stay here and keep quiet, I'll be right back, I whispered to Haley. As I glanced at the group of thugs, Haley suddenly got panicky when she saw I was about to leave. No way, you can't go alone. Take me with you. Don't leave me here alone. She got so worked up that I quickly covered her mouth, scared she would draw attention from the thugs with her loud voice. What about Raymond? Leave him here alone? I frowned, bringing up Raymond on purpose. I thought Haley would at least reconsider because Raymond cared for her, but she didn't. Who cares about him? Haley shoved my hand away, glaring at Raymond with disgust. If it weren't for him, would I be caught here? This place is filthy, my hands got cut by the ropes, who knows if they'll get infected. He messed with the wrong people and got beaten up, he got me involved, why should I suffer for him? I wasn't really shocked she said this, though. Deep down, I knew Haley was the kind of person who'd sacrifice others to save herself. Well, then you can untie me, and you stay here. I'll go find someone to call the cops. No way. I almost instantly rejected that idea. I had a gut feeling that if I let her go, she'd leave without looking back. She wouldn't care about Raymond's or my life. Stay put. I'll be back soon. I didn't waste any more words with her, seized the moment while the thugs weren't looking, and crawled out through the dog hole. Once outside, I looked around to get my bearings, but I hadn't made it far before I heard Haley's voice shouting from the warehouse, someone's escaping. Quick, go catch them. At that moment, it was like I was frozen in place, feeling cold all over. My mind went blank. I didn't understand why Haley did that, but one word echoed in my mind, run. All the thugs quickly came after me. I ran aimlessly through the woods, tripping countless times, running until I was exhausted but too scared to stop. They soon caught up and surrounded me, hitting and kicking me. That moment brought me back to 6 years ago, to the countless dark times I'd been beaten. At some point, someone tore my school uniform, and as my skin was exposed to the air, I felt like my heart was being crushed. Don't let her looks fool you, this girl's got some meat on her bones. Someone's hand touched me, and my brain went blank. I tried to get up and run but was dragged back by my hair. Wanna help avenge the boss? They grinned wickedly at me. Their leering looks made me sick, and I trembled. Raymond messed with the boss's girl, so let's mess with his sister. I don't know who started it, but they tore off my uniform while dragging me by my hair to a patch of grass. I was terrified, screaming, pleading, but those animals didn't see me as human. They covered my mouth, grabbed my throat, and tore at me roughly. By the time the sun set and the moon rose, my tears had dried, my voice gone, and they left me in the dirt like discarded trash. I don't know how long I lay there. When I woke up, I had a high fever and was in the hospital. Some villagers saw me and called the cops. In the hospital room, Raymond, who had seen everything, sat with red eyes, turned away from Haley, head down, motionless. The lies had been fully exposed, and Haley's face was pale. But she still clung to a shred of hope, tugging at Raymond's sleeve, her voice trembling. No, listen to me. What more is there to explain? What other lies do you want to tell me? Raymond shook off her hand, grabbed her shoulders, and screamed, "Didn't you say Daisy escaped on her own? Why didn't you tell the truth? Do you think our lives are worthless? Only Haley's life is precious? What did I ever do to wrong you? I treated you so well, Daisy treated you so well. How could you do that? Why would you push her into the fire pit?" Haley laughed. "Push her into the pit? Raymond, I'm just a bit selfish, but who's the real culprit behind Daisy's current state?" The truth hit hard. Haley unveiled her true self. "Did I tell you to push Daisy down? Did I tell them to catch her? The person responsible for her condition is you. She's dead now. What's the use in pretending? Can she hear you?" Haley's mocking words stabbed at Raymond's heart. "You're calling her Daisy now, but how did you describe her to me behind her back? You called her filthy. Said the scars on her body made you sick. Said she should have died back then. How dare you blame me for hurting her?" Raymond's eyes widened, as if struck by a thought or utterly hurt by Haley's words. He stood there, trembling. He suddenly dropped to his knees, completely breaking down. Holding his head, there was deep regret in his eyes for the first time. "I was wrong. I've wronged Daisy. I shouldn't have been so harsh. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have abandoned her. But I was so scared. I feared she'd come back and expose me. I'm her brother but never acted like one. I brought her to this state and still said she deserved it, wished she'd died outside. I deserve to die. I deserve it." He collapsed to the ground, crying his heart out. Watching his self-repented breakdown, I felt no sympathy. All the memories played out. They didn't know it yet, but they were being cursed online by netizens worldwide. Mom seemed unable to accept my suffering, covering her mouth and almost fainting. "How did this happen? Why didn't she tell us? I'm her mom. Why did she keep it all to herself and not say a word?" "Because you never believed her." Me, usually silent Dad finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "Your heart was always biased. Out of 3, Raymond and Haley were always your favorites. But there wasn't a single time you chose Daisy without hesitation." Dad nearly crushed the remote in his hand, veins bulging in his neck, shaking with a stoic face. "Even now, knowing her suffering, you still blame her. You don't deserve to be Daisy's mom, and neither do I deserve to be her dad." Dad got up shakily from the sofa, almost falling several times. Watching him, I felt a painful squeeze on my heart, making it hard to breathe. "No, no. You are the best dad, the one who loves me the most." I tried to hug him but couldn't touch him. His tears fell, strange since I couldn't catch them, yet they felt like burning my hands. "He's definitely my dad, my competent dad. During my 6 lost years, when everyone gave up, he persisted. He went gray overnight, consumed by guilt for losing me. Despite work trips, after finding me, he never missed a daily call. He was the only one in the family always standing behind me, unconditionally believing in me. When I had PTSD after being violated, he stayed by my side for 24 hours, abandoning all work. When Mom advised against reporting to protect Haley's reputation, Dad insisted, even threatening divorce to seek justice. Just to give me my due. To ensure those who violated his daughter faced consequences. "Let's divorce." "What?" Mom looked shocked, not believing her ears. I said, "Let's divorce." Dad took a deep breath, pulling out divorce papers from his briefcase. "I don't want any assets. We'll divorce. I'll take Daisy's ashes and leave. I'm not a competent dad. I'll spend the rest of my days praying for Daisy. Praying she has a happy, healthy next life devoid of parents like us." He finished resolutely and left. Mom stood stunned until seeing Dad leave the ward without looking back, then collapsed. How did it come to this? Haley, never expecting this outcome, gritted her teeth, full of spite. "It's that whore's fault. Why didn't she die when they violated her? Why did she survive? Why disgust people even in death?" Haley's rant ended with a bottle hitting her head, causing her to fall off the bed. Her recently mended leg hit the floor hard, making her scream again. "Mom!" She stared wide-eyed at the mom who threw the bottle, terrified. Not just her, even I never saw Mom look like that. "Why wasn't it you who died? Why Daisy? Why are you so selfish, never letting Daisy have a moment of peace? Why did I even have you? Without you, just Daisy, wouldn't our family be intact? Would your dad have mentioned divorce if it weren't for you?" Mom was like a crazed person at that moment. She stood up and started hitting and kicking Haley. She grabbed Haley's neck tightly and said viciously, "Your dad was right. I'm not fit to be Daisy's mom. And you don't deserve to have a sister like Daisy. You ruined her, you ruined me, you ruined our family. Since I brought you into this world, let me send you to apologize to Daisy now." "No." Haley kicked her legs desperately. But she had just had surgery and hadn't recovered. Where would she find the strength? Her eyes were about to pop out of their sockets, and tears kept streaming down her face. Shortly after, her eyes widened and she stopped moving. Haley was dead. Killed by her mother who had once doted on her. Mom went mad. She couldn't accept that her favoritism had caused my death. She couldn't accept Dad leaving her. She couldn't accept that she had just killed her own daughter with her own hands. She was put in a mental hospital, where she rambled day and night, "Daisy, has anyone seen my daughter? I need to find my Daisy. Mom was wrong. Will you forgive Mom? Don't leave Mom all alone." Raymond was sometimes clear-headed and sometimes muddled. He couldn't come to terms with the reality. He couldn't accept that his family had fallen apart overnight. He drank all day and lived in a daze. In the end, he was found naked and bruised, frozen to death under a bridge. I thought I would feel avenged, thought I would disappear from this world after achieving my goal, or maybe be reincarnated. But I didn't. My soul floated beside Dad, watching him shave his head. Carrying my ashes, he bowed with every step as he climbed to the mountain temple. The abbot asked him what he sought. He said, "I just want to light a lamp for my daughter and spend the rest of my life praying for her happiness and peace in her next life." It felt like something was calling me. My consciousness started to blur. The moment I lost awareness, I seemed to see Dad smiling at me, "Daddy's Daisy. May your next life be peaceful, joyful, with a happy family, an always supportive mom, and a dad who loves you forever and ever."